I'm here to do another episode of Reflections, and I always actually get requests to do them with team managers or people who are in some way behind the scenes. And so someone I've got here who's ideal for that's ODEE. He's from Team Dignitas. How's it going?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Okay, so you've obviously been in the scene a long time, but people are going to think, if they know Team Dignitas now, okay, so ODEE must be the guy who made Team Dignitas, and that's him. He's always been a manager. But I actually used to follow Quake in the early 2000s, and you used to play, famously, CTF, right? You used to play in a pretty good team, like a Div 1 team. I think maybe, did you play for Team UK as well?
Yeah, played for Team UK. I think the most known team I played for was Gunzoids for a little bit.
And how would you evaluate your playing career? Was it, I mean, obviously CTF wasn't like a Quake 1v1 duel or something. It wasn't like huge tournaments and lands and stuff, but it was pretty competitive as like a side thing, right?
Yeah, it was, but I spent most of my 3 years playing Quake trying to get CTF bigger. I just love CTF. I just thought it was just so much fun, and it just never got big. It did when I stopped playing. Well, it didn't to an extent. When I stopped playing, they reduced it down from 5v5 to 4v4, copied the American style. But by that time, I'd stopped. But yeah, I was pretty good, I must admit, and I really enjoyed it. So I also tried to actually run tournaments. I think I did host the Nations Cup, first Nations Cup for CTF. Kind of ran it myself and played in the team myself, which is a bit odd, but it worked. And basically got even countries all around Europe, like Iceland to Turkey playing, which was pretty good on those pings in those days.
On one hand, like as a positive, I always heard from people when they were comparing like CTF to something like, for example, TDM, which is a bit more sporadic and a bit more hard to understand for a beginner. They said actually maybe CTF's the best format for like introducing newer players or spectators, because you can just follow the flag in the same way as in football. You just follow the ball, okay? You don't have to look at every man on the pitch. But also, people did criticize Quake 3 CTF because they used to say that unfortunately people played too defensively, or it just became like there would be one capture in the whole game and it would like be at the very end after people just went really turtle style. What do you think of the pros and cons? Like, how good was it as a game? Did it have some flaws and some problems? Did it have some things that weren't exploited? What do you think?
Oh, there were definitely maps. I think the biggest problem where it was like there were a lot of 1-0 matches because the tactics evolved, and like pushing into mid instead of defending your base, like just putting everybody in mid. They're never going to get past you. So it was like watching a bit of a football match, a stalemate. And then the chicken maps, I can't remember the full name of them, but they came along and kind of revitalized it, and had a lot more exits from bases. But yeah, it was definitely, you had to kind of know what was going on to get into CTF and watch it. And obviously, unfortunately, at that point, we didn't have anything like Twitch TV. I think if Quake 3 happened now, that would be one of the most watched games, because it was just entertaining. There was stuff, skill shots, just tactics, like sometimes blocking people without actually shooting them, just getting in their way and blocking them, stuff like that, tactics like that you just wouldn't see on a public. But yeah, it got a little bit stale, which is why I wanted to move on.
After that period of Quake 3 was basically, okay, I'll set it up like this. Quake 3 was the original like elitist game, where if you played Quake 3, then obviously everyone who played Unreal Tournament was an idiot, and everyone who played Counter-Strike was a noob. So the reason why I set it up like this is, ODEE didn't go from Quake 3 and then play another game that was like a really elite level game. He went to Battlefield 1942, right? A public game. How did this become like a competitive game for you? What drew you to it?
It was the demo, the Battlefield 42 demo. When that came out, Wake Island, and like getting into a plane and flying around that map, I was just addicted. It was just so good, and then you could get out the plane and shoot somebody like Quake 3. So I instantly grabbed a sniper rifle. So it's kind of like a railgun in Quake 3, and I just loved it. It was just so much fun. It was just always something was happening. It was never like a public in that game. There was, you just spawned and you got shot, or you shoot someone straight away, like Quake 3 was in the beginning. Unlike my first go at League of Legends, when I didn't know what the hell I was doing, ran down the lane and died, and I thought, sod this, didn't play again for 3 months. But Battlefield, I just loved it so much that I thought, right, okay, let's try and make this a professional game, and that's what I set out to do.
The thing is, I actually remember even people who were elitists and Quake, etc. In the public mode, they could appreciate, okay, if they went to a LAN party or something, it was fun to play in public. But people always used to say, okay, that game will never catch on competitively. Like, how close did the competitive side come to being like a legit game, do you think?
That's a hard question to ask, because we were playing, well, I was playing at the top level in that game. I don't think it got anywhere near what I was hoping it to be. But whilst I was playing it, I thought, yeah, this is it. I think we even wrote to SK at one point asking to join them, and they turned us down. Which is why we kind of started doing it ourselves. It never had the support, like, and even now Battlefield today, I don't think DICE or EA now support it like they could, and they could really push the game. It's competitive now, but it's a totally different game, of course. But I don't know. I just wish Battlefield 42 was revamped and that kind of game came out again, where you can fly a plane, get in a tank, get in a jeep, run around as infantry. Like, it was just so much fun. Hours and hours and hours I played on that game. My wife was probably pissed off, I can't believe, but still.
When Dignitas, the team, was formed, okay, and initially it went through quite a few different games, especially all these games that were popular in the UK, like Battlefield 1942, adding like FIFA, some CS 1.6. At the time, people who watch this interview now will mainly know League of Legends as like the Dignitas game, or maybe they know a couple of other games. And so they're going to actually think, because of the position that your team's been in League of Legends, oh, you must have always been like an SK or a Mouse Sports or MTW, these big European clans. But I remember back at the time, people thought of Dignitas just as a UK clan, or they thought it was like you were like one of the minnows trying to get up to the level of the Sharks. Like, when did Dignitas actually become like a big clan for you? And did you have that perception yourself initially, like it's a small thing I've started?
I think initially, like, we knew we were good. When we formed Dignitas, I still remember that night where we all got on comms, and I think it was Roger Wilco then, and like the two teams, the German, UK, Danish contingent with me and Demon, kind of, we merged with Companix, a Swedish team, and we got on comms and spent 3 hours finding a name, and I think somebody said, like, let's get a Latin name with 3 syllables, and we just went through loads of Latin names, and that's where we came up with Dignitas. How did I know? I don't know. It's a really hard question. I think probably the moment where I thought, hang on, we're actually getting bigger now, was when SK right at the beginning of Dignitas, we wanted to model ourselves on what SK did, because at that point SK was the community site for first thing I do in the morning. Like, there wasn't Reddit or anything like that. I don't really read Reddit, but I go to SK straight away and check out the SK site. I think we formed in 2003, probably 2006, SK copied something that we did, and at that point I thought, shit, SK have just copied what we did. That's amazing. My life is complete, because I was so happy at that point. I can't remember what it was, but that's when I thought, hang on, we could really start going somewhere. And it wasn't long after that where we started getting a lot more sponsors.
One thing that I've actually always wondered about was, okay, so the period when Dignitas really got bigger was sort of like post-CGS in terms of becoming like a premier clan. So how did you run Dignitas at the same time as doing the CGS franchise, where you were the manager type guy? Was it chilled out a bit?
Well, I pretended that I wasn't running it.
Okay.
Because my job in CGS, basically, I had to step sideways and backwards. I think originally they said that I couldn't have anything to do with it, so I said that isn't going to happen. So when CGS came along, literally stood sideways, said to Newman, like, you have to front it. And Newman's like always been around since day one. I run the business day to day and do most of the decisions, but Newman's always there and always has been there as like backup, to just like, ODEE should do this, or vice versa. At Dignitas at that point, I think we had like 60 plus players. CGS was only 10 players, and they were paying me, I think it's like 4,000 a month to manage a team of 10 players. And it wasn't really that much to do, to be perfectly honest, because the guys that I picked were obviously a good team. And when you got someone like Rattlesnake that can organise a CS team perfectly, and all I had to do was just make sure that they're doing what they should be doing, it was pretty easy to do it. and then just continue doing what Dignitas. So basically what I did, I used some of the salary from CGS to pay my mortgage, and the rest we just pumped it into the team. It was quite useful money at that time, because that was quite a difficult period financially.
The strange thing about the CGS thing for European people was, even though in theory they'd expanded all around the world, obviously their initial plan was just do America, and then they were going to expand later, and they sort of just tried to like jump ahead of themselves. So they added Europe, they added these other areas, but as a result in Europe there was 2 teams. You just played each other to see who got seeding or something, and like it wasn't like a full league like that until you just got to the world finals, right? So what did you actually do if you were part of the European times, because you didn't have that whole season, right?
Yeah, well, there were about 8 teams, weren't there, in Europe? I'm sure there were. Like Stockholm,
let me think.
Stockholm, Berlin, Birmingham, London.
There's 4. I think
so
there might have just been 4, right?
Yeah, it was 4.
Okay.
Yeah, so we didn't get a season, so we didn't get to practice. But the players, the players that I picked were top of their game at the time. So like the Americans had their season, which is obviously for TV, and that's what the whole CGS thing was about. So we literally got paid to play a couple of games and say, "Yay, we're UK champions," and then go to the World Championship, which was it was kind of, if you look back on it, it was quite shit, to be honest. But at the time, at that point, that was 2008 when it came along for me. And at that point, I've been in gaming for 9 years, waiting for something to happen, chasing mainstream media. So finally, like Sky, DirecTV are putting gaming on TV. Okay, they bastardized it and made it horrible in probably most of the ways you can watch it. But at least it was on mainstream TV. That's the way I was thinking of it. So, yeah, how we won it in the end, I don't know. It was just good players and luck. I think at one quote in the CGS, I said to them, the gaming gods are looking down on us, or some shit like that. But yeah, it was just a bit weird. The whole thing was weird.
It's easy for everyone to look back now, especially when some of those facts and figures came out that they'd spent like 45 million out of the 50 or something that was supposed to last 3 seasons in like 1.5 or something weird. When you hear that, it's easy to say, oh, it was obviously going to die eventually, etc. If they'd actually sort of like managed it better, and they'd been a bit more frugal initially, and maybe they hadn't expanded just beyond America until they got that established, could it really have actually been sustainable and been like could we be in a CGS world now?
I think if they hadn't have expanded at all to start with and just done the North American stuff, it probably could still be going. Like if Twitch came along like a couple of years after, but they literally wasted money on the expansion. Like it's pointless, because the expansion was like Asia and Australia, and those players were getting paid all of their salaries, so that's a massive chunk. All the travel that was involved. I think the biggest waste of money I personally saw, like, which pissed me off at the time, was when we were doing a shoot for the world final, and they'd gone out and bought these giant flags to like get these 2 blokes, which they hired for the whole day, to wave in the background whilst our team was doing a photo shoot, and they were saying like $5,000 for a flag, and they bought 8 flags, and I was thinking, what the fuck? Like, that's a lot of money. But yeah, I think if they hadn't have expanded, it could have had a chance, but the format wouldn't have lasted, I don't think, because it just wasn't that watchable. And yeah, it's, I don't know, that's all in hindsight. It's easy to guess what could have happened, but at the end of the day, they spent too much money. What I heard, DirecTV asked where their money's coming back in, and they were told it's not coming back in for a few years. Okay, let's shut it down. And that's my understanding of what happened, contrary to a lot of belief that I knew most of what was going on. I knew hardly anything. I just got my money every month and got the team where they needed to be, and I was pretty happy with it. So
when we say, okay, ODEE's team won CGS and won the 500k, people are going to think, oh, he must think fondly of this period, and he must think there was some good things. When you said there that the format was kind of shit, it was kind of a bizarre format in the sense that it was actually possible in theory to win without actually having any of the best player in any game, because of the weird point system, and it actually, certain games clearly were worth more than others. Like from what I remember, I think like the female fighting game or something was like one of the best to have, and what the racing ones were better than CS. And what did you actually think overall of that sort of thing?
Right at the beginning, Sujoy got first pick, for the London team, which at the end ended like I put that down to winning the world title. If I had got first pick, I would have picked Chris Bullard, but in the end I ended up picking Davy Skills.
And he was like a FIFA player or something, was he?
Chris Bullard was at the time was the best FIFA player.
Okay.
But FIFA, that particular game, and then the next year's version of the game, the goalkeepers were so good it was really hard to score. So you got a point for a goal. So the FIFA players were pretty much worthless, basically. So I got Bazza, who was still a good player, but it meant that I got Davy Skills, and Davy Skills was one of the best, and probably still is one of the best racing drivers in the world. And he kind of helped win the World Championship. Him, Rattlesnake, those two, amazing players. So yeah, thanks to Sujoy really for that. I can't even remember how he got the first pick either. Can't remember.
When it said that you won the 500k, people always reported it that it just gets split. All the prize money went to the players or something, right? How did that work out?
Right, so the 500k, I got 10%, and then it was split by 10 after my 50 grand.
Okay. After CGS finished, we heard from a lot of the other like owner guys of teams. I mean, admittedly, some of those actually did sell their team and then they had to buy it back and they didn't know what was going to happen. Whereas you sort of dodged around that, as you mentioned. But did you ever have like post CGS blues where you were like, oh fuck it, if that failed, esports is done, it's all over. We're never going to be on TV. Because I mean, remember, streaming didn't really exist. So if TV can't work, that's it. Like the dream is over.
Well, at that point, I was all in to this. So I'd left my job that I worked at for 18 years. So I was like, okay, this is my job now. Explain that to the wife, and obviously at that point, we had 2 daughters. Actually, no, we have 3 daughters. Blimey, getting old. But at that point, yeah, it was really tough. So CGS died. I think it was December 2008. I think, and then 2009 was a recession. So that year for us, like as a team and for that was toughest yet. And I never want to get to that position ever again. 2009, I would say for any esports teams, the old school esports teams, I would say like SK, everybody knows how tough 2009 were. I think that's when MYM disappeared as well, 2009.
Yeah.
€1 million investment and gone. And that's still shocks me now how that could have happened, but it did. So like the newer esports teams and like the organizations that have spawned from League of Legends, like Cloud9 and TSM, they don't have any recollection or knowledge of that time. So that's why I'm extremely cautious now, and I hope that those guys do their homework, because yeah, that if that ever happens to esports again, that would be a really, really bad thing.
So that period of time you're talking about there, okay, for the actual games themselves, for stuff like Counter-Strike, for Quake, it was a really good period. Like there was lots of good players, the games were really evolved. But like you say, because it was kind of like after a lot of the big investment things had gone bust and then this recession came, well, there was a couple of years until this streaming revolution happened that if you were a team, you had to survive that period. And this is the period where I think of Dignitas, where like I say, you were like trying to figure out how to establish yourself as like a big team. Like you weren't quite at the level of like a Fnatic or someone like that. What do you think held you back? Like, for example, okay, why could Dignitas never just get like a really top level Counter-Strike team, or you know, some foreign team, or someone like that? Why did you never want to invest in that way, or could you not?
I think going back to what you said earlier, I think a little bit of bias from our management at the time to CS, because we weren't CS players, so we never really liked it that much. I would say at that point, but also we kind of missed the boat on CS at that time. So we didn't have the funds to like pick up one of the top teams. And the other factor is we are a UK company, even though we got like at that point Germany and Sweden. And if I say that at that point one more time, I'm going to hit myself. Germany and Sweden, we had like a big presence as well, but we wanted to concentrate on UK players and try and promote UK assets. So after CGS, like there were a lot of players available, so I kind of picked up quite a lot of them. Got Rattlesnake back in the team. We had our CS team, but we never ever. I think he came 9th at ESWC's Rattlesnake famous saying, but woohoo, 9th. Yes, but that's why StarCraft at the time we just we completely missed the boat on that one, and we never wanted to get a like an average player. We just didn't see the point of wasting money when we had good teams in Battlefield, Enemy Territory, FIFA, and it was ticking along nicely until 2009, where it got tough. I think July, the summer of 2009 was probably the worst point, I think.
Okay, so actually StarCraft is a game I want to pick you up on, because that was a game where you were in on the ground floor. Like, you actually had some other players who at those first tournaments, from the European side especially, were doing pretty well. You had Nanawa, obviously, you had Show, you had Select. These were players who were MLGs and IEMs. They were placing well. Now, the perception, I think, in StarCraft was like, initially, when the salaries and all that stuff matched where ODEE and Dignitas wanted to be, they were, oh, okay, we're in here. But then when people like Nanawa were like peaking in terms of like popularity and all this stuff, and other teams could offer them more, then people get the sense that like ODEE didn't want to splash any more dosh. He felt like, I can stick here somehow. Is it true?
It's not a case of not wanting. Like, give me as much money as you can, and I can spend it. It's a case of like budgeting. Like, we've always been cautious, and especially after the recession, we just like, this is our budget. That's what we've got. So the problem when you've got 4, 5, 6 StarCraft players is, if you salary them, then you go to less events. They can't travel. So if you have low salaries, then you can go to more events. And that's kind of what we were thinking, and like hoping that the guys would go and win prize money. And they were under no illusion like that was it. This is the salary we can do. If it's not good enough, sorry. If we could have paid more, we just would have needed more income to actually make that happen. And that's true. Like now, it's like if you haven't got the money, you can't spend it. So I think when we picked up Naniwa, that was because Show said he's quite good. At that moment, I didn't actually know how good he was. I just took Show's recommendation. So we had him on a really silly low salary, and he started winning everything, which caused the problem. It wasn't actually the salary with Naniwa that made him leave. It was the it was the fact that Show and Select said like, Naniwa has to go or we go. So I chose them over him. This was the first time, and then he went off, and I can't remember who he joined after us.
Complexity or someone, I think, or Quantum.
Yeah,
or someone?
It could have been. And then he went on his his long list of teams.
Many teams.
Yeah. So at that time also we had players we didn't pay, and like we won't pay you a salary, but we will send you to every event. Like, go and win stuff, and making sure that people were under no illusion that this at that point, for every single StarCraft player, it didn't mean that you were a full-time professional if you were playing at the top level, because the money wasn't there. Probably best example is Mers. Mers we sent to every event, great guy, fantastic player, would have loved to have paid him salaries, but the tournament winnings weren't there. He wasn't winning things. And we actually had I think he got really pissed off with me when we had the conversation where I said, Mers, just go and study, go and finish your degree, become a lawyer. He got really pissed off, but my thinking was like, don't mess up your long-term career just for the hope that you're going to get like $1,000 a month, because that's pointless. And the best thing about Mers, 6 months later, after him being pissed off, he came back and said thank you to me for actually saying, no, you can't have a salary. So that was kind of justified my thinking. But saying that as well, if we'd had the money, we would have paid more, and we would have got probably Koreans. More Koreans.
One of the things from knowing Alex in SK, a concept he explained to me quite early on when I used to work for his site, which I think held weight, but people didn't know about in the public, was he said to me, okay, if you have a multi-gaming team, then actually you have to be way more strict with the budget than like a team that just exists in StarCraft. Because essentially the team in StarCraft's gambling. They're saying if StarCraft dies, we're fucked tomorrow. But right now, what we'll do is we'll pay everything to the player so we can get the big name player, and then we're just going to ride StarCraft and hope it works. Whereas a multi-gaming team, they want to be able to say, okay, if StarCraft dies, we can pull back just enough to stay alive and go into other games as well. Is this something that was a problem in terms of like being able to sign big name players or keep hold of them, etc.?
Well, when StarCraft 2 was coming along, we actually had a plan for how we would pick up the players. So we had a list of like 50 players, and we kind of watched them for 2 years before it actually came out, and kind of had a list. And Select was actually number 2 on the list of people we wanted to sign. And I spoke to Select and signed him in 2 hours. Literally had the contract signed in 2 hours from saying hello. And basically he knew Pureball, who was a StarCraft player, played for us for quite a while, played Brood War, and he was friends with him from Dawn of War, and he said, come play for us, they're great guys, and that was it. That's why Select signed, and he's still with us now, even though a little hiatus in the middle. Show, we had a budget to pay him. I think initially we didn't pay him, and just said, look, cool guy, we want to help you get to the events, and we did, and then it kind of grew from there. So we didn't really have a huge budget for StarCraft. We just wanted to get 2 players right at the beginning and see where it goes. And luckily we picked 2 really cool guys, and Show went on straight away to win the European Championship. And Select, great guy.
When I described there, like in StarCraft, okay, you were becoming a big team within StarCraft, a European team, because of this fact that essentially you picked the right guys. Even if it was early on, you got people like no one could have predicted that Naniwa would like win that MLG in that fashion and stuff. So you got some good picks. But the thing is, okay, like obviously to become like a fully fledged top team, you need like consistent top layer tier talent. So when you were saying there you couldn't really get in on StarCraft, there was other games like Counter-Strike where maybe you were too late to get the big names. The game that really seems to have made Dignitas is League of Legends, because what's funny is there were teams like SKs or like Fanatics where their mentality was like, okay, if we get teams, we'll get good players, but they're going to be European because we're European orgs. What was like the idea to get an American team? Because obviously you're a British org, but by getting an American team, that really seems to have like, you've gone up with the water level with the TSMs and the CLGs, these ones that have gotten bigger than SKs, etc. in the one game, right?
Well, I think we got in early on League of Legends as well. We just picked the wrong team. So we actually had a European team first, and they went to IEM, at was it Gamescom?
Yeah, I think it would be Gamescom.
And they were really bad. That sounds bad to say, but I think they will tell you that they were really bad. And on the LAN, it just went horribly wrong, and that team broke up after like a few months, and we were like, shit, now we don't have a team, this game's taking off. And I remember being at that IEM with the Fnatic management standing, looking over the barriers, asking me what I thought of this game, and then they picked up the team which they now have. Well, I think there's one player left out of that original lineup, and we were like, shit, we don't have a team, what do we do? And we just decided not to panic and not to go crazy. So how the American team came about was, I think 10 months went by and we still hadn't found a team. There was nothing in the UK that was appearing that we would have gone for a UK team to start with straight away. There was nothing in Europe that was interesting at the time. And I saw Joe Miller and Demon at iSeries. I can't remember which iSeries it was, but they were sitting on their little stage because the servers were down, so they couldn't cast, so they were sitting there bored out of their minds. So just sat down and had a chat. And I said, right, who do I get? Let me know. I think a couple of weeks later, Demon messaged me and said, rock solid, go for them, really good guys. So I approached Scarra, and that was it. And picked them up. I still, probably at that point, we knew it was growing, but I had no idea it would turn into what it is today. It's a monster that continues to grow.
So I'm getting a trend here that happens with ODEE where he doesn't like, if you're playing Football Manager, okay, you don't like save up all your money and then buy the best striker who's like top of the Premiership. You use like an old school like scout who's like, yeah, I've seen this guy down the park, he's pretty good, you should pick him up. Sounds like you're picking all these players up from one player's recommendation of another. D-Man tells you to get this guy, someone else tells you. Is this always been your approach? Do you still use that today?
I still use that today, but yeah, obviously we gamble on some things, but there's no better recommendation. Like people ask us all the time, how do I become a pro gamer? The best way is to get recommended by another pro. That's the best way in, because like League of Legends, if you're seen in solo queue and a pro says, oh, this guy's good, and says it to his teammates, they're going to know the name, and that's how it starts. If a CS player is caught on a server, probably first of all he's accused of cheating normally, but then you just keep an eye on them. But when you're with League of Legends, talking to Joe and Demon, it's not the fact that they were casters of the game, it's the fact that they were my teammates. So when they used to play Battlefield, so my trust in them is like a bit more than somebody I just know. Like, I've known Lee for God knows how many years. And Joe Miller, first time I met him was at iSeries when he was 16. He sat down next to me with a pint of beer and drunk it in one, and I thought, I like this kid, he's cool. And that was God knows how many years ago that was as well. So recommendations from players like we've just picked up Seed. That's from Select. Select says this is the guy we need, and he goes to MLG and does really well in his first tournament. And he's a really cool guy. He fits in with how we run as a team and how we work as a team. So we don't just get players and like there you go, off you go and play and we'll pay some money. We have a lot of interaction with our players, and Seed is a really, really cool guy. But to answer your question, yeah, it's a method we use, and it's a method that all sports teams use. You have to scout your players. You have to get an idea of who you're getting, and to get recommended by a fellow professional is the best recommendation.
When you got that League of Legends team, the timing must have made you really excited, because they actually won that IPL 3 towards the end of 2011, so they win an event. It's like, wow, maybe they can become the best NA team. And then the next year or so was like, get to the semi-final every time, like third place, second place, third place. What do you think it was about that team where they couldn't crack like the TSM sort of status and become the best NA team properly?
I think they just simply weren't good enough. That's a lot of times you'll hear people say, "Oh, why are they not winning this? Why are they not winning that?" in any game, and it's sometimes like you're just not as good as another team. If I knew the exact answer on that, we would have fixed it at the time, but we didn't. And I invest in people, and especially team leaders. Once I've got a team leader like Scarra, I trust him to tell me what's going on and what he needs to do, and we've always done that with all of our squads, especially team games. And this isn't product based as well, but this is the IPL trophy. It's on the desk because it's actually the most dangerous trophy in esports. It's as sharp as hell. So it actually pierced the suitcase that it came back in. So, yeah, I don't know. They just went into a slump. We did well at IEM. We came second at IEM with Voyboy there, and then after that, with the meta changing so much, we just didn't hit the heights.
One of the perceptions from the outside, and when I talk to some of the players, it sounds like they sort of think this was kind of the case as well. If you look from the outside, okay, that team is full of like warm personalities, people who seem like, oh, they just seem like they're great mates, and they seem like a cool guy. But as a result, people have sometimes wondered, did being friends within the team make them keep players where maybe they should have been a bit more cutthroat and you could have upgraded that position? Were they guys who actually had the full-on drive? Like think about how TSM is. If TSM actually have lost at any point in time or even come second, someone's going to get cut from the team, you know, because it's like you have to win. That's the only thing. Whereas in Dig, it was more, people got the sense it was more like, well, you tried hard. You did a good job. Maybe next year. Is this at all accurate?
Definitely not. I think to some extent yes, but like I've just been to my daughter's sports day today, and I'm definitely not a person that's like, oh, congratulations everybody for trying. I'm the kind of person like to my daughter's win. Like I like competitive. That's why I do this. I think to a little bit. I don't think it was such a friends thing. I think the guys had the belief that they would succeed, and when you've got that belief and the whole team is happy with the lineup, why change it? I think even after we lost to C9 at the in Worlds, in Seattle, I think I was interviewed saying like are you going to change any players? Like I don't see the sake of changing players just for the sake of it. Just hope that something will change. There really has to be an identifiable problem to change a player, and the best way again is inside, especially in a team like. The actual players in that team know when it's time to change, and that lineup with Voyboy, that only got changed, but it was for other reasons other than they didn't think they were good enough.
Since Scarra was always the figurehead, he was the face of the team of League of Legends, and was obviously a very good player at one point in time, and a loved personality even to this day. Was there a degree to which, you know, people always name him as one of those guys where they were like, maybe he should retire now, like maybe he stays on the team because he's so popular and you don't want to remove like the face of the team. Was that ever a factor, do you think?
No. I've had that said to me many times, but no, that would never come into my mind. Like, we've changed our players. Like, we dropped Naniwa when he was just getting good. If a player doesn't fit a team, you have to change. And when Scarra decided, okay, bring in Shiphtur, it was him that told me to do it. When we brought in Golden Glue, though, that wasn't his idea. That was the team deciding we need to make a change. But obviously, Golden Glue didn't work out. And then Scarra, we had every intention this split of starting with Scarra, but then he came to me and said, like, let's get Shiphtur, which turned out to be a good move.
Okay, so when you did this move to get Shiphtur and ZionSpartan, let's just say a little bird told me there was other teams in the bidding. Okay, they wanted, like, some people maybe were trying to just get one of them. They wanted just ZionSpartan, or they wanted just Shiphtur. But I've heard this strange rumor that, like, the price tag was just incredible on them. You're like, it was going to cost people a lot of money. But apparently ODEE gets along with the guy who owns Coast. Did you get some sort of special discount? How did you get these players when there's a bigger org perhaps who maybe wanted them?
I'm definitely friends with the Coast owner, that's for sure. I don't think we got a discount. I still got another installment to pay, actually. And they were expensive. We just felt that this was a good move. And like, it was quite funny when Scarra came to me and said, right, ODEE, bring in Shiphtur, and if you could, I think his words were, if you can get Zion, but I don't think you can afford him. I was like, yeah, whatever. So I went and got both. And then I messaged Scarra and let him know we've got both, and he was literally, what the fuck? How? It didn't tell me. I was like, what the hell? You told me to go get them. I don't think we got any special favours. If we did, thank you. But Coast are a team that will be around, and like they've already rebuilt their team. They were just unfortunate that the circumstances got them relegated in the middle of a season in the spring split, something I don't like in LCS. And we were the beneficiary of those two fantastic players. Yeah. Got nothing else to say on that one.
So on that topic then, like, the reason why I mentioned it is because, like I said before, the perception in the past at least has been, okay, maybe ODEE doesn't like to splash out. Like, listen, if he gets a player that is an unknown and then they become really good, maybe he keeps hold of them then. But he's not going to go out and sign like the big, he's not like Man United, you know, where they're going to have to sign some huge player to get them to the top again. But this, from what I've heard, if the prices are anything close to what I've heard, this was like a big investment. Like, this wasn't a joke of just picking up another player like a free agent. This is actually having to buy someone for a lot of money, but you're thinking, okay, this can potentially make me the best team. Was this like the biggest move in Dignitas history in that sense?
Oh yeah, for sure. But it wasn't like, even when Scarra came to us and said this, it wasn't like our management was like, shit, we're not doing very well, how do we fix this? Like, we're not stupid. Like, we know. Like, we were looking at Zion. And to be honest, we were hoping Coast were going to get relegated, like, just to give us the chance to try and get them in the first place. But when you look at Zion's stats for the spring split, he had the second most kills. The problem we had in the spring split was nobody was making the plays. Cruz is a great player, fantastic guy, like one of the nicest guys you could ever meet. So it was really tough to do that to him. But we're a business at the end of the day, and we felt that if we could get Shiphtur and Zion, that would be the best move for us. And yeah, it's a real sport. It's like there's a lot at stake, and we want to go to Worlds. The players want to go to Worlds. I want to see Scarra now as coach at Worlds. I want to see Imqtpie. I would love to see Imqtpie on stage winning a World Trophy. That'd just be like, make my life complete, I would guess, because I love that guy. But at the end of the day, this is one of our teams that's doing very well now, and that's why we do this. We want to win. So we felt that the investment that we had to make to bring the players in to get us up from 5th, 6th place, because that really sucks, this would be a good move. So that's why we did it.
When you actually made the move, was there any sort of period in your mind, even though you've signed them already, of thinking like, I wonder how this will work though? Because on paper, sure, it looks like a gangbusters lineup, like, whoa, this could be an amazing team. Did you really know how good it could be at the time?
My biggest concern actually was like, what do we do with Scarra? And like, when I told Scarra I wanted him to coach, first thing he said to me, I can't coach. And then 20 minutes later, he was coaching. But yeah, you never know. Like when you buy players, you just don't know how it's going to work. Like same with like football teams or American football trades. You don't know how they're going to gel. And it's not just a case of like, this is a really good player, put him in this team, it's going to work. You have to, the players have to gel, they have to get on socially, and like in game the comms have to be great for a team to win. You can't have like bad comms and win. It doesn't happen. Like this word shot calling, I hate it. It's like it's been invented in League of Legends. I want it called something else. But that thing right now is the biggest thing that people look at. Like who's shot calling, who's calling this, who's calling that. If you ever listen to pro teams comms, you'll be surprised. Like you hear like a snippets of it in LCS where you hear them like a big fight and it's like focus on this, focus on this. The comms are actually really interesting, and it's so complex compared to most team games. Like I love studying comms. That's what I'm good at. But like in Counter-Strike, you'll have a caller that will call everything. League of Legends, you've got up to 3 callers in a match. So anyways, yeah, so when we put Zion in, especially Zion, the way he speaks in game is amazing, and he brought something that we were lacking. And I'm not saying that he's the caller, but just listening to him in the first week of playing, I was like, this is going to work. I was thinking in my head, this is great.
What's different about him?
I think he's just such a balanced person. He's so calm. I haven't heard him get stressed yet. Maybe that we should stress test him at some point. But he just brings something different into the team that we just don't have, and I don't really want to give everything away. But I like what I hear so far.
So one of the most beloved characters in your team now, bizarrely, is actually Imqtpie. But he comes off as like one of the biggest goofballs ever. Like the people on the outside he seems inscrutable. He either seems like he's like a blissful idiot who's just loving life, or he's like some really shrewd, sarcastic guy. Like where's the truth here? Which side of the spectrum are we heading towards?
He's highly intelligent. I know that. He knows what he's doing. He's definitely the biggest troll around, that's for sure. Like any interview you hear or anything like that, I wouldn't take it as what he actually really means, that's for sure. But he's a fantastic player and he wants to win. I watch his stream a lot, just because I think he's hilarious. Yeah, he's a character. He's a 1 in a million guy.
When I did my reflections with him, admittedly, what you're saying here could be some of the case. Okay, some of the things he might have exaggerated to make them funnier if it was a good joke, but he kind of made it sound to me like he never watches anyone who's Korean play the game, and he doesn't care about OGN, and he's not going to learn anything from them, and he doesn't even believe in the meta, and he'll just play any champion he wants. This can't really be the case if you're going to be in the top team, right? Some of this has to be exaggeration.
I think he believes that he is good enough to beat the Koreans, and I don't think I've not seen him watching the Koreans play. I know he cares more about the Koreans knowing that he's a good player. That's more important to him. But he relies on his teammates and then the chat between the teammates on like tactics and stuff like that. Him and Scarra are extremely close. He is a top player. Yeah, I don't know. He could watch them. For him, he doesn't see that it will help him to do that. And that's fine by me as long as he's doing what he needs to be doing.
One weird thing about Imqtpie I wanted to ask you about was when you had Patoy in the team. Because when I did an interview with Patoy and I did my interview with Imqtpie, they essentially both said the same thing, which was really bizarre. Because actually, I remember watching them as a bot lane. They were pretty good. Like, they looked like they had good synergy. But both sides told me they didn't really like each other as people. They never talked at all. They just sort of like, you do your job, I do my job. Game's over. Okay, see ya. Was that really the case in the team?
Yeah. It was. That's probably the biggest mistake we made last year, was not removing Patoy quickly enough. He was in the team too long. And like Jordan, like I am friends with Jordan compared to some people think, but the way that we removed him from the team still pisses me off to this day, because he's a fantastic player and he didn't make it easy for us to keep him. Like, it wasn't like we like, Jordan, like, you're gone today. I think we gave him several warnings, but we should have just done it right at the start. Right, Jordan, it's not working, you gotta go. If we'd done that, it would have been better for us last year as a team. But no, they didn't get on. Jordan just didn't get on with the team at all, and that's the problem. And we should have fixed it quickly. That's my mistake.
One of the things about esports, especially in League of Legends, is that people are very, very conscious of like how they're perceived, especially if their manager's okay. And so unfortunately, in NA especially, it becomes like a huge love fest. And so if I talk to the CLG manager, he's just going to be constantly telling me about how wonderful a job C9's manager's done and TSM's manager's done. And then TSM are going to tell me how wonderful C9 is. And I get the sense ODEE thinks that he's done some things that other people haven't done, or maybe other people have done things that weren't as good. You don't just think of all these guys as, you know, they're as good as me, they're better than me. You must have your own sense of the good things you've done or unique things you've done, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't compare what I do to anybody else. I think, like, what I try to be like and what I aspire to be right at the beginning was like Alex Muller from SK, and the way that he does business. The North American League of Legends managers and owners as they are now, like, I still don't know half of them really. I get on well with Jack and Reggie, and I've always, like, Hotshot, I've tried to help them from the beginning. Like two years ago, you'll ask all of them. I always give them advice. What I do there are things that we do differently, and like bringing in the life coach, for example. That's something I think is completely different, but it's just different the way we handle it. So I have no interaction really with how the life coach talks to my players, and a lot of teams would find that disturbing, but I think it's helping a lot. Making Scarra a coach, I still think Scarra is probably the best coach before he even became a coach, and I think he's going to do really well. But it's not just like this stuff, like managing teams. That there's stuff outside the playing that we do, which there's so much stuff we do now. It's like I don't know, 2 years ago we were paying probably, I don't know, 10 people a month to do stuff. Now, including the players, we're close to like 100 people a month that we pay something to. So all the staff that we've got behind us, all of the consultancy stuff that we do in the background, and finding new revenue streams outside of actual prize money and sponsorship. That's a big focus for us, and we do a lot of that stuff which people don't know about, and we're not the only team that does that either. So yeah, you have to. Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't big myself up as being the almighty or anything like that. I do what I do. I know I'm good at what I do, and I just want to build esports, and esports as a whole, not just one game. I want the whole of esports to get bigger and bigger, and to be recognised by everybody. Once we get to that point, then players are going to get paid silly amounts of money, which is what I wanted right at the beginning. We're still not there yet. We've got a long way to go.
So another industry principle that I actually got from Alex from SK again, which was interesting, was when I was wondering how a lot of the NA, like StarCraft or League of Legends teams, got so big so fast. He said part of the thing is, if you're in Europe, obviously you have like different marketing budgets you're competing for in different countries, and it's very regionalized, and you have to make a lot of relationships, whereas in America, it's one big pool essentially that you're trying to get the big fish out of. And so if you can be like a TSM or someone, you can get these huge sponsors perhaps who can give you a lot of money, where you'd have to maybe make that up over a bunch of people, or you'd have the same company but it'd be a smaller division. Now, you said it before, okay, there was a time when Dignitas was just a UK team. Does the fact that you're a UK team with a League of Legends team in NA mean that you can have access to that sponsor pool in somewhere that European orgs don't? Are you still primarily getting people who are sponsors within Europe and within the UK? What was it like in that sense?
We have global sponsors. It depends a lot on the organisation. Like when I say global, we've got sponsors like Asia, from Europe, from UK, from NA, and money coming in from different sources. But a lot of the big companies will have regional budgeting, and that's what Alex meant by that. we've never sold ourselves as any one particular team. Well, we haven't done that since probably, I don't know, since 2008, and then we became a global esports team rather than a UK team. So I know what you're trying to get me to say, but I don't think it's I don't think it makes a difference, to be perfectly honest. It all depends on what the sponsor wants, and that's the number one rule of getting a sponsor, is actually understanding what the sponsor wants, and that's what a lot of people fail on straight away.
Okay, I have a question here that I'll phrase very carefully, so you can answer it very carefully.
Okay.
There's a perception that since it's so wonderful to be in LCS and to be getting this Riot money every split, to be a part of LCS, and obviously it helps out a lot if you're a team, and back in the day you used to have to pay everything for the players. It's so good that people think on the outside that everything is just happy families the whole time. Every team loves Riot, they agree with every decision. That's how it seems on the surface. But I've heard that there have been times when teams either disagreed with something, or they banded together and they said, like, no, we want to push for something to go in a different direction, and we want to have some input in this sort of thing. Is it like this behind the scenes? Is it what everyone united in one front? Is there back and forth?
I would say yes, there is back and forth. Like I've publicly said a couple of things that I don't like about LCS or the way it's done. But the great thing with Riot is they actually listen to you. They might not agree with you, but they'll take your point. And this is, from my point of view, Riot and Blizzard, but Riot especially, they're actually taking the right route, I believe, on almost everything. I don't think they're getting everything right yet, but they've got to try these things, as otherwise how we're going to know. But like we just had a player conference in LA. We've had a managers conference with the LCS owners at the end of last year. I've never been involved in anything like that before with anybody else, where they actually put forward, like, this is what we want to do, what do you think? And we get the opportunity to say it. There's things like the contracts, the players' contracts, which the Americans especially are obsessed with, like player contract endings and stuff like that. I don't like it. I hate it. I don't want people knowing when my contracts are out. But that's happening. So let's see what happens when the contracts are out in October. But going back to what you said, no, we're not under a hammer of like fear of saying something. I think any LCS owner can happily say something to Riot and get the point across, and Riot will listen. If they don't like it, they're tough. That's life. But there are things where owners have said this needs to change, and they've changed it. So they're quite adaptable there. Blizzard are getting there. Like Blizzard, you can talk to, and they'll listen. But I wasn't keen on how they did WCS last year. I think it's improved this year. I'm still not entirely happy with that way. But then there are companies like Valve. They're doing great things at the moment, but I've never spoken to Valve ever. I don't know anybody from Valve. Never spoken to them, which is a bit odd, I think. And then there's companies like EA who, they're not doing anything as far as I can see. So Riot are setting a bar which everybody hopefully will follow, not copy, but follow, and like talk to the people that are actually involved in the game and trying to push the game to other people, and getting their pro gamers to go to tournaments all over the place. Yeah, I've lost track of what I'm saying now.
It's all right. So the perception, at least over the last year and a half, has been that Dota 2 is now the #2 game, okay, after League of Legends. So it's leapfrogged StarCraft 2, and now, okay, it's not as big as League of Legends, but people think of it as like the legit second game. You've had a bunch of teams in Dota 2, but at the moment, you're not really a player in this game. You haven't got like someone going who's going to win the international now. But in theory, this international, everyone's saying, is going to be the biggest esports event ever. Why is Dignitas not heavily in that game, do you think?
Well,
you want to be?
It just hit 10 million, didn't it?
Yeah.
Well, we would have liked to have had a team involved, but our team broke up in a horrible way. They broke up, I don't know, God, what was that, January? So we were just left without a team, and now the teams have all qualified for the international. The salaries that the players are asking for are just not worth it. There's no point. after TI4, let's wait until the teams split up, because that's what seems to happen apart from the top few. And maybe we can come back later and get another team. I don't know. We'd like to support it, but we need players that want to play for us rather than give us your money, because that doesn't help us or our sponsors. I don't know, the 10 million thing, the $10 million tournament, is it still top 8 get paid?
I don't think they've released who gets paid yet.
Because I hope it isn't. Because like last year, like we invested $85,000 in our team, and we got to the international, and then we came 9th, and we got nothing, absolutely nothing. The players got nothing. I'm still pissed off about, one, that the players didn't get anything. So the players spent a whole year trying to get to the international, the thing that they really would love to win, and even though it's all expenses paid, like hotel and travel, that's great, don't get me wrong, but the players get nothing. And these are like 19, 20, 21-year-old guys that stop university and stuff like that to make money playing games. So with $10 million, see, if it was me, if I was in charge of that 10 million, I'd like, right, here's, grab 5 million, let's spend 5 million on events throughout next year, and we could have like quite a good scene, like lots of different territories, have prize money tournaments paid down to the top 16, and then we got 5 million prize money. It's like I saw a tweet earlier when it hit 10 million, somebody says like the winners are going to be millionaires, those 5 players will be millionaires. Okay, that's great for them, yay, but what about the scene? What about the players underneath? There's nothing coming through. So like with Riot, you've got the Coke League, which is the Challenger circuit feeder to LCS. So there's prize money at tournaments where players can try to become pro rather than do what the Dota players have to do, which is like hope that they pick up a team like us or get a sponsor and they're getting like $1,000 a month, hopefully, and then hope that they do well enough at the TI4 and come top 8. I hope it pays top 16, I really do.
So is it not worth it from your perspective to kind of take it as like a $10 million lottery? And listen, if Dignitas wins the whole thing, that might be like $1 million just for ODEE and Dignitas, right?
Yeah, that's what we do. We if we had a chance to get in there, yeah, we'd probably take it. But knowing what happened to us last year, where we got burnt for like 85 grand, it's kind of like, well, do we put our foot in the boiling water again? I don't know. But anyway, nothing's going to happen now. Like no teams will change right now. It's too late. So we'll see what happens at TI4. I hope it's successful. I hope they pay out top 16. And then I hope to see what other people will do with things like the Compendium, because that thing's brilliant. And look at how much money it's raised. It's amazing. Just shows you how big esports really could be.
As someone who's been around the scene a long time, seen CGS, seen bubbles and stuff, is TI4 like a one-off phenomenon? Like, will TI5 be like 15 million? Can this keep going up? Can it keep going for a long time? Is it sustainable?
I think it's sustainable, yeah. I think it will keep going up, because the older I get, the more like younger gamers will come through, and the more education, the more that they'll know what's going on. So the older I get, the better it is for esports. Not saying that I really want to get old, but that people older than me have no idea what the hell's going on. It's like the BBC report from London Wembley Arena. He started off with like, okay, so I'm in the crowd, I don't know what's going on. When we eliminate that bit, it's going to be great. So yeah, it's only going to get bigger. Plus, we have Twitch TV. Twitch TV has revolutionized everything, and you've seen like Own were there. They've gone. Azubu are trying to compete, but the way that people watch esports now is just so easy. Imagine this in like 2001 with all the Quake tournaments. How big Quake would be. Yeah, it's only going to get bigger.
So one of the games that you more recently got heavily involved in was CSGO, because before, again, you were trying to like support UK teams, or you had like, we're going for teams that were like, again, more of like gambling on certain players and seeing if that comes up. But now you've picked up potentially one of the best teams. CSGO has the perception also that it's on the rise in some way. How do you see like Dignitas's role in CSGO? How big a game does it have to be for you? Like, does your team have to become the best for it to become like a major focus for you? What do you think?
No, it was just good timing that that Fetish left, that team left Copenhagen Wolves, because at that point I just put a chunk of money in the like, this is the CSGO budget. Let's see what we can get when the team comes along. And literally a week after I allocated that money, the team was available. So we got talking, and we went to them because we decided, like, okay, CSGO is really good. We don't want to be ninth for ESWC anymore. We want a team that can compete. And knowing Fetish from the past, like, I know he's a good guy, and I know he's a very good leader. So perfect fit for us. So we went to them, and yeah, they're doing really, really well. I think they probably do better than they thought themselves at this stage. We got a busy summer coming up, and it's just nice to see an FPS game getting that viewership. And don't forget, like, most of the management at Dignitas came from FPS, so to see FPS kind of die for several years, it's a bit depressing. But CS:GO, and you're probably the same. It's the better version. It's much better than Source, that's for sure. And the viewership's just really, really cool. I think we did our cup at the weekend, and we got almost 30,000 viewers watching one of our cups for £1,700 prize pool, and the prize pools are relevant. It's the teams and the skill level. So yeah, we're very happy with those guys.
So anyone who's even just listened to this interview now can see sort of like the growth that Dignitas has gone through, where it's been a UK team and it's been trying to become the best UK team, that, you know, building your way up like that. Do you think now that you're in a position where you've got like a major League of Legends team, you've got a major CSGO team, was there any sort of secret that had to be figured out along the way? Is it just boring, like it's just gradual growth? Was there something you figured out along the way, do you think, to go from being a smaller one to a big one?
Yeah, it's building the relationships. Like we have relationships with a lot of people, a lot of companies. We have got players that have gone through Dignitas. I think we're closing in on like 600 have gone through Dignitas since we started. So now there are players coming back now that used to play for us that are now in positions of power, which is quite scary. But it's pretty cool, and it means that we can talk to these people and work with people, and they bring us to new companies and new directions that didn't exist before. So yeah, so building a relationship over time is a really, really important factor of any business, and it's the people that you have working for you, and like the big management team we have, and all the staff that we have that know the scene, they know the players, and they all have one goal, including my goal. Like, making money is good, trust me. Like, money is always a good thing, but I do this because I love it. If I didn't love this, I could have disappeared after the first major League of Legends controversy involving me with WCG. And just like we could have gone for one really big team right at the beginning, like you said, we could have gone for a big StarCraft player, got in the money, just paid one player or a team of 5, and I could have paid off my mortgage 10 years ago. But why? I just see it getting bigger. And I really do. Like, I want to get to the point where we have like academies. Like, we've already got like scholarships in universities in America, which is interesting. I want to see like gaming academies. I want to talk to governments about what we do, and we've already started doing that. There's so much more that we can do, but at the end of the day, winning and helping players and giving players the ability to go out and show what they can do and try and win something, that's goal number 1 for us. It always will be.
So this question to some people listening will be totally irrelevant, and it's purely for my own curiosity. So when I described the upwards trajectory of Dignitas over the last 10 or so years, there was another team in the UK called 4 Kings that basically did the opposite. Now, this team at one point in time had a wonderful sponsorship for the period of time they were in. Okay, there was a time, this is over like a decade ago, when they could pay their Counter-Strike players £1,000 a month salary, which was crazy money back then. You know, that was like the money that you paid if you were the best team in the whole world. If this team had such great sponsorship, they had Intel fully on board, why isn't 4 Kings around today? Why aren't there these huge UK orgs that could compete with these other countries? What do you think happened? Okay,
so another factor on like a philosophy of Dignitas is sustainability. So there's only so much that you can only spend so much before it's gone. And if you waste money, and we've wasted money, like we've lost money, like the 85 grand in Dota, like we spent a lot of money on things that don't work, but you have to try stuff sometimes. But when 4 Kings were at the top, and yeah, we wanted to catch 4 Kings, and we did. That was one of the original players. Like, we want to be the UK #1. We want to do that stuff. We want to do what they do. We want to pay players that. But you have to build it up. And when you get to a point where you're spending all of your money and more, that's never good. I'm not saying that we haven't done that. There was a point where we were quite in debt, but that was on me and one of the other directors. That was a conscious decision to gamble. But we watched the mistakes that Four Kings made. We watched mistakes other teams made, and we said, right, we're not doing that. Like, you don't need to pay this amount of money. It's ridiculous. So StarCraft, a couple of years ago, the salaries got to a ridiculous point where it just they priced themselves out of the market. And now the price point salaries for StarCraft players are crashed completely. So like, there was one, I don't know, 3 years ago, one of our players was asking for $4,000 or $5,000 a month, and we were like, where the hell does that come from? So you add it up, like for one player, $5,000 a month, 60,000 a year, plus travel, you're looking like 40, 50 grand. You're looking at $110,000 for one player. Imagine you got 60 players. Where the hell does that money come from? There was no sustainable way of getting that money in other than relying on sponsors. Now it's a bit different because there are ways of making money now for organizations other than just hoping that you get a big sponsors deal. Sponsor deals are always going to be important. They always will, and they're going to get bigger as gaming gets bigger. But you've got to go and make your own money. It's like merchandising, for example, is massive now for all of the teams. Like there's boxes behind me. I spent half of my time, which I probably shouldn't, packing up hoodies and shipping out t-shirts. So yeah, so Four Kings, they just made a lot of mistakes, spent too much money, and disappeared. It happens. MYM were worse. The old MYM.
Yeah, sure. So I had a comment. I actually made a joke on Twitter after the thing that happened between us on Summoning Insight. Okay, I made a joke that people who are from the UK in esports, I feel like the only solution for us is we just have to stay off Twitter. Like, there's something about the culture or the way we interact that, like, in an American set world, it doesn't seem to work. Odie, what do you think we're doing wrong here? What is the clash that we're not getting across there?
Yeah, I've learned this lesson the hard way now. Trust me, it's been a difficult month, but anyway, hopefully that's behind us. But I think our sarcasm is completely lost. I've learned the lesson. You'll never see me type in Twitter Twitch chat like I did. God knows why I couldn't even give you an answer why I did that in the first place. But yeah, sarcasm, that's probably the worst thing. It's like I've known you for years. Like, you say some stupid stuff every now and then.
Sure.
And that's but that's the way you are. Like, and like, I don't think you mean anything like straight to the bone, and a lot of your stuff is sarcastic, and we know that. But a lot of the new people coming in don't get the context of a lot of what's typed. That's probably the best way to describe it. So, like, in my case, that particular JPEG was over an hour and a half. And it just gets put into one, and the majority of people will see that little JPEG is like, fuck, he's gone mad. Like, what's wrong with him? I mean, when I saw it, I was like, shit, that does look quite bad. So yeah, so sarcasm doesn't translate in text, so don't go that way.
To tie this into actually the team aspect, working with American teams after so much time with all the UK players or with European players, is there a different sensibility to them? Was there any period where you had to figure out like the relationships with NA players and key people who are going to be in your team for a long time? Was it different at all?
Every nationality is different. We've learned that. It's like we have 19 nationalities at the moment in Dignitas, and it's, yeah, we've just learned. But look, when I had a real job, I used to look after, I was a key account manager for the main customers for the company that I work for, and I dealt with like South Americans, Chinese, so I had a good understanding of how to deal with with a lot of these people. I wouldn't say it's much like the UK players are not that much difference from the Americans. They're not that much different at all. The Koreans are extremely respectful, which is wonderful to deal with. Korean players, I love that, because they respect you for what you do, for seniority. I would say that there's a really fine line with managing players so closely with actually becoming their friend and managing them. That's quite tough to do. It can bite you, especially when you're running a business. I don't know. You just have to deal with the individuals. You have to get to know your players. Like, if players are playing for you, you have to understand like where they're coming from, what their past is, what their goals are. If you don't do that, or even take the time to do that, why are you managing a team?
Okay, to wrap this up, do you have a final message or someone you want to thank or say hello to at the end of this interview?
No, just I'd like to thank the whole esports scene actually for where it is at the moment. Just all of the fans that are actually watching esports and supporting the players and the teams and supporting organizations and sponsors. Just keep doing what you're doing, and then hopefully it will just make it get bigger and bigger, and then more finance will come in from come into esports from other sources, which there are so many untapped sources right now, and the bigger esports gets, those sources will start taking notice and coming into what we do. So I'd just like to thank all the fans of esports. Just keep watching and supporting us. That's the main thing.